Greetings, brothers and sisters. Another celebrity, Hollywood celebrities dropping like flies, sort of, kind of, whatever. 29-year-old professional soccer player suddenly collapses without contact on field during live game broadcast, causing match to be suspended. I'm sure there's a video out there somewhere. We've seen enough of those. Second drill sergeant dies at Army's Fort Jackson in 8 days. Melton's death came a little over a week after the death of 34-year-old Staff Sergeant Alan Burton. This guy was 30, so these are young guys, right? Relatively young guys who should be in good shape, who are, having cardiac arrest right in front of everybody. Okay, so this guy, he comes in, slams into the dude's car, and gets up and just jets. Apparently that was a rental. He had a rental ski, hits the thing, bounces off the car, gets up on his feet, and just runs off. I talked about this. This is the audio.
Jada, you're a bald-head liar and you're a drug addict, right?
Oh, God.
You told the world that you were going to sue me. As of yet, and you said you're going to do it swiftly. It's been over 2 weeks. So, Jada, I'm giving you 2 more weeks to sue me. If you don't sue me, this is what's going to happen. All the sex parties, right? And the people, the men that you hit with, I'm naming names, right? All the salacious stuff that you have done and hurt other people, I'm naming names.
Were they koshered? Were they koshered dildos?
You assassinate my character. You say I extort you. Well, extortion is criminal. Like, I would be in jail right now if I tried to extort the Smiths.
Sweet Jesus.
So that happened. Does Avengers 5 title change really mean the MCU is ditching Kang? So this guy, who was really annoying character, I saw him in the Loki show. And, he he got convicted of beating up his girlfriend, some various types of assault and things like that. So they're either going to they're building their whole Avengers, their new Marvel, whatever it is, around this guy Kang as the villain, and they were putting him in all these various TV shows and movies, and now they don't want to be associated with this guy, and so they're having to change everything, it's good because Marvel sucks now. Let's remember the time before the Kardashian family knew about plastic surgery. There's Kim. There's Joey, Bobby, Joey, whatever his name is. There's Caitlyn up here. There's the mom. There's the older sister. It's always fighting with Kim. There's Chloe, the big one. Rob. This guy's name's Rob. Guess who's not getting a laptop for Christmas this year? Another quality meme. Alabama football player Elijah Pinkett arrested for knowingly spreading STD. This happened. One of my viewers sent me this. Kind of self-explanatory here. So this guy takes different, the guy has different, puts different fireworks. It's a guy speaking in Asian, some kind of Asian dialect. So there's that. Then there's this one. Kaboom. And then it goes pretty high. And then this one. Kaboom. That one's, it's going up there a good 30 feet or something. And this one. And let's see, there it goes. That's going high. I mean, this guy got the camera angles going here. Look at that. Like, you can barely see it. This is why you don't want kids having fireworks. I mean, the power here, look at that. And then there's even bigger ones here. It's like almost like a half a stick of dynamite or something. Kaboom. And then an even bigger one, maybe just putting this thing upright. Standing back. And wow. And there it goes back to the beginning. So John Morant, after being suspended for 25 games, again, nothing criminal, but, punky behaviors. Just more attitude than anything else, right? And repeating, the same things, lying to the commissioner. So, just kind of being a punk. He came back and he played a great game and hit a game-winning shot. And after the game, he said this.
Back on that timing, baby. I kept receipts, too. I kept receipts. Back on that timing, baby. I kept receipts, too.
So he's saying he kept the receipts of all the people who criticized him. Then he doubled down here.
Job running off the floor, someone caught you on camera saying, I keep receipts.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on that? And secondly, what was your meeting?
I feel like it's self-explanatory. Yeah, I remember everything that was said.
See, the problem here is it's not really self-explanatory, right? Because the problem with his behavior was entitlement. He became a famous athlete in a small city, one of these, they call them a small market team. Now, Memphis has its country music stuff and whatever, and, Bollywood and these things around there in Tennessee. And they have a, Tennessee Titans football team, but, they have a limited amount of star power. Like, there's these small cities that have, they don't have the kind of star power that New York and LA and some of these other cities have, right? Not as glamorous. And John Morant was an up-and-coming star, and his family abused people throughout the city. They abused security guards at malls. They were, expecting privileges and wanted to be treated like royalty, right? And that was the arrogance. And he had his crew, his posse, and they were going in and, threatening people, and they did it at, basketball games, and they threatened some of the, Pacers team. They put a laser pointer that would be on a rifle, or some sort of weapon. They put it on some of the players, and, which is intimidating, right? To have, like, when you have that dot on you, right? When you're in somebody's scope, this type of thing. They did that on a game. They had, some of his friends got kicked out of they were not allowed to go into games anymore. I mean, it was just, they were running around being thugs. He beat up some teenagers, Justin Bieber kind of stuff, right? Getting cocky, being arrogant, and being a punk, right? That's what, he was a punk. And, his dad was there, and his whole family, his mom and his sister, and they all got, attitudes and wanted special treatment. And when they didn't get it, they reacted hostily towards, people in the city. And then there was things he did on the internet, and then lying to the commissioner. And it was, somebody young acting in a way that was, you go through a punky phase when you're young, and if you have power and money, you start feeling yourself, whatever. You get arrogant. It's understandable. But he got punished for it, 25 games. And he says he regrets these things, but he didn't specify anything. And then he comes back and says he kept receipts. This was a self-inflicted wound, right? Like, he was given the benefit of the doubt, and then, like, 2 weeks later, they crapped out against the Lakers in the playoffs, and, there's a lot of drama there, and they underperformed. They were the second highest-ranked team, and they lost to a seventh-ranked team. And so, like, that was bad, right? Like, it was real bad. And then, he seemed to not care, was joking around on the sidelines, and then he brandished a handgun on Instagram again after meeting with the commissioner, and, everyone knew that he was going to get punished. It was self-inflicted, 100%. There's no receipts. You acted like a punk. You got punished, and you know why. And either you're sorry and you're remorseful, or you think that somehow the world's against you for not allowing you to have the privileges and be treated like royalty, and, these things, the entitlements that you don't deserve because you're just a basketball player. And nobody deserves that kind of treatment. No one deserves the ability to abuse other people and be, do you know who I am type of thing, right? Like I say that as a joke. Nobody deserves that, right? No one deserves to, think that they're higher than people and abuse them because of that type of thing. You have to humble yourself, right? Everyone is playing a role in society, and you have to have a sense of your limitations as a person. You're just a basketball player, and his family too, the way they were acting. And so this is a guy who didn't get it, right? Like clearly didn't get, he didn't get the lesson that he was given. Derek Hoff, I guess it's that guy's a dancer, Dancing with a Star. Dancing with a Star says it right here. I didn't know who that was at first. Derek Hoff reveals wife Haley Ebert will have skull surgery following craniectomy, craniectomy. I don't know. Come on, why am I even trying? He's saying to replace a large portion of her skull that was removed during her whatever that is, right? Emergency craniopathy. She had a cranial hematoma, which sounds like blood stuff. And so, some sort of blood clotting. And she's a relatively young woman who looks like a dancer herself. And so she had been disoriented and was taken to the hospital. She was diagnosed with a cranial hematoma from a burst blood vessel and required an emergency with word there, which I've already butchered a number of times. John Stamos recalls drinking a whole bottle of wine after a 2005 DUI. I never sobered up. He was a rebel. Every one of those, almost everybody in that show except for Bob Saget and maybe the not funny Canadian guy that, dated Alanis Morissette when she was 15. The guy who played Joey. Whatever his name, don't tell me, don't care, don't need to know. Everyone else went into some form of rehab. Taraji Henson breaks down tears over her alleged unequal pay in Hollywood. The math ain't mathin'.
I'm just tired of working so hard, being gracious at what I do.
She's working really hard at acting, pretending to be other people.
Getting paid a fraction of the cost. I'm only human, and it seems every time I do something and I break another glass ceiling, when it's time to renegotiate, I'm at the bottom again like I never did what I just did, and I'm just tired.
She's tired of it. She's tired of being a celebrity.
I'm tired.
I got a couple questions for you. How many glass ceilings are there? Because I thought there was only one. And why is it math's fault? The math ain't mathin'. It's not math's fault, right? What are you going to do if the math ain't mathin'? Meghan Markle appears in cringy coffee ad as slightly nerdy intern. What a fall from grace. Well, I guess there's an ad here.
Clever team here at HQ. Without them, we are nothing. All fulfillment crew, lovingly packing your lattes. We've been listening to Brittany on loop since 2019. All very smart, only slightly nerdy digital team, making sure the website doesn't crash again like it did last year. Finally, the glue that literally holds us all together. Our incredible, resilient fulfillment team that have helped make 2022 such a big success.
I don't even understand what's going on there. It just sounded like gibberish to me. The math ain't mathin'. Jeffrey Epstein accuser Virginia Giuffre taunts 170 people to be exposed on naughty list. Apparently there's a list that's coming out for Jeffrey Epstein, and 170 people will be named in unsealed indictments. Finally, the Cubies are going to get some unsealed indictments, or at least, whatever it is, right? This was a great headline. Street bazaars, rats handcuffed cops. Our politicians are turning New York into big crapple. And so I guess they're having these street bazaars here. I've seen that in New York before, years and years ago, so I'm not sure what's happening, whether it's just out of hand here. This is, that's happening. And then, of course, rats have been there for a while too, but if it's worse than it was in terms of the rats, then there's some rats there. then, I mean, New York City and California, everyone's abandoning that can.
This morning, we want to pass along some tough news that we learned earlier this week. Our Chopper 4 photographer, Brad Freitas, passed away a few days ago.
We called him Chopper Brad. He was part of our
Chopper Brad. Who thought Chopper Brad was going to go?
for traffic coverage for many years. In fact, for 8 years, whenever we needed news from the sky, Brad couldn't wait to get on the air. We relied on him when there was hard news and either devastating weather events as well. He had an eagle eye. It was Chopper
Eagle Eye. She's Chopper Brad.
Brad, who got shots of the commander's name the night before it was announced. He was so happy. We were so proud of that moment. Brad celebrated from the sky when our sports teams won. And just last month, he led our emotional goodbye to the Pandas. Through all of it, Brad's personality and excitement for his job were always on full display. We got to see that off the air, too, as a family man. He leaves behind a wife
And a young daughter. We send our love to them as well as his parents.
Okay, so how did Chopper Brad die? Chopper Brad. I don't mean to. I mean, it's tragic. I don't know. I mean, the math ain't mathin'. Was he diagnosed with cancer? It says here he passed away unexpectedly. I don't know. I don't mean to laugh, but it's, I cover this so much. Somebody wanted me to be more compassionate. In one of these videos, why don't you be more compassionate? It's dropping like flies and it's apocalypse. I mean, okay, I feel the need to explain this a little bit. I can come off as insensitive. I'm in the editing process. And, this guy, if this story is true and legitimate, this guy is a younger man who just died and he has a family and they're all sad and kids and, growing up without a dad. I mean, it's, a tragedy. I understand where people feel a certain kind of way about all that stuff and why me laughing at it would be seen as insensitive and obnoxious. But for me, as I cover all this stuff, it's not real. None of this stuff is real to me. Like, I don't know this guy. I didn't, watch the local news and wherever this place is in Washington, D.C. I didn't know, I don't know if this guy's actually dead or any of these things, right? Like, it's all just a show to me. And the way that I can cover all this stuff is I'm detached from it. And I explained this in another video. I laughed at my grandfather's my favorite kind of person growing up as a young person. Took me deep sea fishing and I, missed him. But when I saw his body, as a, I guess a 10 year, 11-year-old kid, I saw that his soul wasn't in his body anymore. I'm like, that's not my grandfather. I went to the wake and then these guys came in, these guys from the American Legion, which is a bar, and they were drunk, and one of them farted, and me and my dad started laughing. But I wasn't laughing, I wasn't not sad about my grandfather. My grandfather was gone. His body was there. I understood death more than most people did, he had a young age, that he was no longer there. Whatever was his life and emanating his life, his soul was gone. And now it was just a body. And you see things that's just a body. And, the body is, and all these things, a gravestone where the body's buried, and you go and worship, you go and pray there, and it's stupid to do that. You can connect on a soul level to the person, but you also want to make sure that they move forward, right? And, you're sad when you lose somebody you love. And, that's because they're special to you, and that, I understand that, and, I feel the, whatever, the same sort of way about that, but understanding the true nature of death and life and all these things and reverence for the dead and all this thing is just stupid, right? It's, Chopper Brad is a funny name. I mean, it just is. Chopper Brad. Like, he can't say it without laughing. At least I can't. And regardless of the reason I'm saying it, the report that's going on here and all these other things, I don't experience it as these people being real. They may be real. I'm not saying they're not, but that's not how I experience them. I cover these things all the time. I started covering this because YouTube had very strict policies around the bloop, and I wanted to document all these things people were sending me. Again, viewers were sending me these things about people breaking down. And, so that became a theme of this channel. And it's changed a little bit. And there's, all these things where I could show you, people are dropping like flies, kids having heart attacks. It's happening. People have become numb to it. And I documented it here, and people have lost interest in it. They've moved on to something else and whatever. That's fine. And now I cover things that are adjacent to, they're just things that show you the apocalyptic nature and how people suck and are breaking down and are failing. And if they took the boop and, they have a reaction to it, I guess it's tragic in one way, but it's also preventable. And it's going to get a lot worse. I was just covering this on my other channel, what's going to happen when the collapse happens. And people are going to be dropping like flies from now on. And you're going to have to deal with it. And the amount of death that's going to happen when we move to a situation where there's, births are going down and deaths are rising. And they'll get to a point where there's more deaths than births and our population starts declining. Things are going to change. And everyone has to be aware of it. And, forever, whatever that means, it's going to happen. And you have to find ways to cope and understand the nature of our system. But anyways, if you don't get it, then don't watch. I don't care. If you don't understand what I'm doing here, that's fine. And you don't have to, like some person wrote to me and said, you should be more compassionate. I'm like, come on, right? A long time ago, I used to cover celebrity deaths, as Illuminati sacrifices, blood sacrifices. Prince and these people. YouTube started to yellow those videos, and so I stopped doing them. But there was stuff to do with that, right? Prince being a big one. I got lots of views from the Prince videos, and then there was this guy who died from Chester something or other. He was one of the lead singers of one of these bands, and he committed suicide. And his wife had a name. I forget what her name was. Chester Bennington is the guy's name. I went to look it up, and his wife's name was Talinda. And I made the joke that that's a witch's name, right? Like if you're going to be named Talinda, chances are that you're going to find your way into Wiccan or one of these things, this Hollywood, whatever it is. But she has, she was somebody who came out as somebody who, like, not as much as Bob Saget's wife did after he died, but when grabbed her own a little bit of fame. And years later, my dog Farley died, and I announced it on my channel. Farley was hit by a car, and somebody wrote me like a 3-page letter, and it started off with the person saying, "I was waiting for this to happen to you," and their reasoning was because I made fun of. They must have been a Chester Bennington fan. And because I made fun of his wife's name after he died, I must have banned this person for being a douche. And then the person waited for like 2 years for me to experience a tragedy. I mean, he shot his wad a little early. If he'd waited till I found out my daughter committed suicide, he could really have gloated, right? And he's trying to tell me he's a better person than me because he felt I was disrespectful of the dead. And then he sat around stalking me for 2 years, not watching my videos, just waiting for the tragedy to befall me so he could rub it in my face that I made fun of Talinda's name, right? Like that was going to get me in some way. And yeah, you deserve, like, my dog dying because she was 15 years old and she could barely see and she lost a lot of her teeth. And, she was clearly, not functioning well. She wandered off and got hit by a car. It was sad. It was a bummer. But it was going to happen. It was inevitable. And that had something to do with me being punished, right? Like that's how the person was. And the waiting around, gloating, waiting for me to be punished, and then trying to claim they're a better person than me, right? And all these concern trolls and all these do-gooders. And so if you don't get it, you don't think I'm being whatever, you don't watch my videos. Like you don't, it's fine. I'm not, not everyone's going to get it. No one's going to understand it. But I'm just being honest. I give you my honest reaction. I'm not wishing bad things upon anybody, but they're happening, and the civilization's collapsing, and this is an apocalypse, and I find it funny. I find the whole thing funny. That's why I call it the apocalypse. It's something about it makes me laugh, and I talked about, I laugh at times when I'm not supposed to laugh. I find that funny, and it makes me laugh more. And so, if you don't like it, sure, go see these pretend fake people pretend to have emotional reactions and say what's socially acceptable. but they don't really feel it, right? They're frauds. They don't believe what they're doing. I mean, they don't really feel these things, compassion and empathy. They just pretend to do it, because that's their, whatever, they're supposed to do that, right? And I don't do that because if I don't feel something, I don't pretend to feel it just because of social conventions. Anyways, let's move on here. Tourist dies at second highest bungee jump in the world run by A.J. Hackett. A tourist died in China after using a 764 bungee jump at an adventure park run by Kiwi entrepreneur A.J. Hackett. So I'm not sure how he died here. The visitor experienced shortness of breath, eventually losing consciousness shortly after making the jump, and had cardiac arrest. So he had this massive bungee jump, and it scared him to death. This is a drunk bird, apparently.
Kangaroo, also known as wood pigeon, which hails from New Zealand. During summer the bird binges on fruits, and if the fruit is ripe and the weather is warm, it can ferment and turn into alcohol and the bird goes nuts. They become drunk, lose coordination, fall from trees and pass out. You may come across one of them trying to walk and roll on the ground. Locals in South...
sounds about right. So here's the receiver for the Pittsburgh Steelers, George Pickens. Here's the guy he's supposed to block. He decides to completely not even try to block the dude. And then he jumps out of the way. You see, he just doesn't do anything. Puts no effort into blocking the guy. And then the running back comes in. He just comes in and jumps out of the way. He's playing jump rope out there, right?
Down. You stay on the block too long, you can get ran up on very easily. So
some people are questioning your effort.
All the people that's questioning my effort, down, play football, they do what y'all do.
So he was saying is you get run up on or rolled up on, which would mean that some player comes up and rolls up your legs and you get hurt, right? Which is like part of football. It happens quite a bit in football. So he's saying the reason he didn't block is he didn't want to risk getting hurt. And then he was mocking the reporter saying, you guys don't do this job. You don't know what it's like out there, which is true. But his job is to block like you can't. And the coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers, who used to be kind of tough and disciplined on his players, so he's not suspending them or doing anything like that because he's talented and they need him to win. So I'm in the editing, portion. I started doing this video yesterday, and I decided to add this because I wanted to comment on, all of it. The football is a violent sport, and there's a connection between the military and football. Like they have all these military, they honor the military, they have flyovers, and, the military recruitment, all these things, right? The military, the pro-culture military is a part of this. And I'm going to cover this with Vivek Ramaswamy, who told a reporter to go F himself in a speech, not to his face, but he said it in a speech, And there used to be a level of, in the right wing, a level of sort of morality and ethics and, sort of etiquette. And I don't care about etiquette, but they used to care, right? And in football, I could see them getting rid of football altogether. They've been trying to de-violence some of the game by, making rules to protect receivers and quarterbacks because of these vicious hits and things. And in all the players now, there's different ways, in terms of blocking and things. You can't blindside block people. But that's kind of why people watched, right? The violence of the game. And they've tried to get rid of the violence. And even with that, there's more backup quarterbacks this year than any other time. All these quarterbacks went down with injuries because injuries are inevitable. Football, the Super Bowl, the winner of the Super Bowl is determined by the teams that have their players, most players healthy, their star players and the key players, their whole team, throughout the playoffs and the regular season. And if you lose a key player, a quarterback, or any number of players, you usually don't recover it. A star running back, or receiver, or key defensive players. And the more injuries you have, the more it's just like war. It's war. This is a metaphor for war. But that's what it is. And blocking is a key part of a receiver's job. And he chose not even to try. And instead of saying, yeah, I screwed up, he said, yeah, I didn't want to get hurt, and I'm not going to try in the future if I'm in a similar situation. And he's not doing his job and should be fined and fired and disciplined. Like when you refuse to do your job and you publicly come out and say, yeah, I'm not going to do that. Like I feel like entitled not to do that. And that sums up 2023. It's the year of the F it. The guys are saying F it. I'm not, that's just another way of this. But it's the entitlement and it's the weakness and it's the, all of it. The privileges and all the things that this generation has, this youthful generation. And they're unwilling to do the jobs that they're given, right? I've covered a girl who wanted to be, she couldn't, she had some kind of chronic whatever issue, like they just make things up, where she was chronically late. And she called it a psychological problem and wanted her bosses to understand when she got fired that she has a psychological issue that makes her be late, right? Like it isn't her job to figure out how not to be late. And this is this generation. This shows you the collapses here, because not only are these kids saying these things, but they're being pampered, and it's they're being, the elder generation, especially the left, but even the right to a certain extent, are tolerating and pushing this idea that you do get to say that, you don't have to block, you can just allow your player to get hit, and not score and lose the game because you didn't do your job, because that's you're perfectly okay to do that. And, this is the breakdown of society, because you have to learn to do things you don't like to do. And everything comes with good things and bad things, and you have to accept the bad things to enjoy the good things. But that's not being taught to this generation, which is a complete disservice to them, because they think that they can just have fun and do what they want all the time. And when you got a society of people who do that, there's no longer anybody doing the crappy jobs that people need to do to keep society going. And youth is the people who do those crappy jobs. That's why there's so many places where, fast food restaurants and places like that, where kids, younger people have jobs that they don't want to do, and they can't tolerate and do these jobs. They can't work 8 hours, and they can't do things like that. And they will rather retreat into their cyber universe. And, this is just another indication of the downfall of humanity. Anyways, be more compassionate. Only spirituality will save this world. It's Paul Romano, definitely pointing from the Apocalypse and the Ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.